Hello, I'm Joni and I'm mother of the bride. I run a website called I'mMotherOfTheBride.com, and on there you can find articles and tips about great things to wear on the day if you're the mum of the bride or the groom. You can find out about the new rules for weddings, marriages and gifting, and you can find a set of articles about how to hold a home wedding or a backyard wedding. So today on this video I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the first things you think about when you're considering whether to hold a wedding at home, and that is, so for the meal, for the reception, how many helpers will I need? How many servers will I need? Now that depends on what kind of catering you're going to do. There are really three types of catering. There's the buffet, very, very popular. People love buffets. They can choose just what they like and really as much as they want. The second popular possibility is to have everybody seated at tables and waiters bring round a plated meal, and that can be quite formal. And then something in between is people are seated at tables and you are using servers and waiters, but they're bringing platters to the table which you self-serve from. So you share the platters just as if you were at home with the family. So if we take the first one, a buffet. How many helpers do you need for a buffet? Well, a buffet will require at least one attendant, and the rule of thumb is for 25 to 50 guests, reckon one attendant. More than that, you're into more people. So if you had a buffet for 25, you need one attendant. If you have a buffet for 60, you need two attendants. And if you're catering for 150 people at home, then you'll need 4 or 5 attendants. What does the buffet attendant need to do? They need to make that buffet look really appetizing for every guest, whether they're the first in the line or the very last. So that means making sure that the table always looks beautiful, removing anything like dirty glasses that have been left there by mistake by people chatting and moving along the line, and making sure that the food is replenished so that nobody comes to a bowl that's almost finished. Always take out the platter or the bowl when it's about 3/4 finished and fill up from the kitchenette so that it's a nice full platter again. Now you'll always find in a line that there'll be one person who wants to ask a lot of questions, who wants to make an Instagram image. So normally the attendant would ask the rest of the line to carry on and ask the person taking photos or asking the questions just to come to one side so that he or she can explain exactly what's in every dish or give them the time to take their photos, but the line keeps moving. One of the problems, of course, is always how long is that line, and nobody wants to stand at the end of a very, very long queue. So how do you avoid having long queues at your buffet? Use both sides of the table and ask the attendant to stand back, always monitoring what's going on, but allowing two queues to form and making sure that there are serving utensils, obviously, for both queues to use at the same time. You could divide up the queue by using more than one station. But just remember, if you're going to have more than one station, you'll probably need more than one attendant. Never announce that the buffet is now open, because all your guests will go forward at the same time, or alternatively, they will all hold back because they don't want to look greedy. So plan out beforehand how people are going to get to the buffet, and the normal way is for tables to be called forward. Obviously, the bride, the VIPs will go forward first, but after that, how are you going to decide who comes next? Well, it could be just table 1, table 2, table 3, and so on. But that means that whoever's on table, let's say 10, thinks, oh, am I ever going to get my meal? So a good way to do that is to have someone confident to stand up, or your DJ, and to ask questions. And when they get the right answer, that's the table that goes next to the buffet. So the kind of questions I'm thinking about are questions to do with the bride and the groom, or their family, their likes and dislikes, Or other more general questions like, on which table will we find the couple that has been married the longest? The good part about doing this is it keeps everyone involved, so they're not thinking about the queue or their food, they're thinking about the answers to the questions. And it also means that people who might not know each other when they sit down on the table certainly know each other by the time they get their food. When you're looking at a more formal plated meal, you should reckon 10 to 15 guests and you'll need one waiter. So if you were having 25 people, you probably need at least a couple of waiters and possibly a wine waiter. If you've got 60, you'll need 4 to 6 waiters, or 3 or 4 and somebody to serve the wine. And if you're catering for 150, you've got to think in terms of 15 waiters, possibly maximum, or perhaps 10 waiters and 2 wine waiters. How would you reduce the number of waiters? Well, the first thing, of course, is keep it simple. There aren't extra bread rolls to be filled up, perhaps warm. There aren't extra sauce boats to be brought along, and so on. The second one is to make sure that both the kitchen and the waiters are working to a very detailed, pre-ordered menu and table setting. Always make sure that water is placed on the table, and the waiter will have to make sure that that's replenished if necessary, but there's no need to pour the water. With wine, for a very formal meal, people will expect the waiter to both pour the wine and to refill glasses. But you could get the waiter to pour the first glass and then leave the bottles on the table for refills. Most people would find that totally acceptable. One thing you'll certainly want to do is to announce that the bar will be closed during the meal. Now, the reason to do this is when people are sitting with a waiter attending them, they'll probably turn around to the waiter and say, "Oh, I'd like to start with whatever it is." And as soon as one person wants a special drink, a martini or whatever, there'll be a few people at the table will ask that. So best just to say the bar is closed during the meal. So what about the third category? That's the seated meal, but it's the informal type where the waiter puts down the platters and the guests help themselves. 15 to 30 guests per server. So if you've got about 25 guests, you'll need one person to help. If you're serving family style for up to 60, think in terms of 2 or 3 servers, perhaps plus a wine server. And if you're doing 150, then you'll really have to think about 6 servers, or at least 4 or 5 with 2 people to serve the wine. Obviously, I've mentioned wine waiters for this service, but most people wouldn't use them. Most people would say if it's family style, everybody helps themselves to the wine. You might also want to announce again that the bar isn't open, because if there is no waiter to ask for a special drink, then people will tend to get up and go to the bar, and this really disturbs the ambiance of the whole day. Now, that's really just about serving at the table, but there will be other jobs to do with the catering. Lots of little jobs that go on during the service, and these are the kind of things that you could ask friends if they've got teenage sons or daughters who would like to help for a small amount of money. Actually, most teens don't like going to weddings, but they love finding out what's going on, and they really love earning a bit of money. So here are the things that I would ask teens to do. Scraping plates, washing up, stacking the clean dishes in clear piles marked with where they're to go back to. Now, if everything comes from a catering company, that's not a problem, but very often for a home wedding, you're using some of your services, and you may also be using plates and so on from friends. So if they have stickers to put on the top plate or whatever of each pile, it'll make it an awful lot easier the next day to get everything back. It can be somebody's job to make sure that everything goes into the right recycling bin or recycling bag. And then it can be somebody's job to take out the trash. And one very useful job is being a runner. In other words, taking messages back and forward. Just a couple of things I would never ask a teen to do. Never let them anywhere near alcohol. No, they cannot serve the champagne as people arrive. They can hold the canapes and pass them around, but they cannot serve the champagne. If you don't have waiters to serve the champagne or the cocktails, then put them on a lovely silver platter or a nicely laid out little table, and people help themselves. But don't ask teens to serve them. And don't ask them to replenish wine glasses at the table either. Always get a waiter to do that. And the other thing is, never let them behind the wheel of a car. You might think they haven't tasted the alcohol, but they probably have. Yes, a teen can stand out at the front and say, oh, you're next in the line, could you go down to the end there, can we start a new line here? Our parking is full here, but you will find parking in the next street, and so on. But they never say, give me your keys and I'll be happy to park. I suppose one thing that comes up for me is, does it need to cost a lot? Having a lot of waiters and so on sounds like it's rather an expensive business. But you know, if you had a little lunch party for some friends and neighbours and explained to them beforehand, I would have loved to have had you as a guest, but it's just a home wedding. We don't have the space. I'm sure you understand. But I wonder if you would be willing to help us out with serving. Then I think you will be surprised how many people would love to help you on the day. I once went to a French wedding here. It was actually British people getting married, but they were getting married in a French village. They were able to get 60 guests. They got friends and neighbours to do all the cooking. They got their sons and daughters to help out with washing up. And they got the local cafe to come along and set up a little bar area and provide the drinks. And they got the local scout troop to be the waiters. And everyone had a wonderful time. How much did it cost? Almost nothing. Just the price of the food. And everybody enjoyed being part of it. It became a real village thing. Now you could do that in your garden. You don't need to spend a lot of money for a home wedding. It can be a wonderful way of bringing people together and celebrating with you, whatever their task is on the day. So, have a wonderful day. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.